2020. For academic improvement of young lawyers, the workshop will commence from 16th of this month and we will have regular workshop in room number 3 at Odisha Judicial Academy. We have decided to name, or we have, in other words, we have dedicated our law workshop after Dr. Yugandhra Mishra on his birth centenary year. Likewise, symposiums will be organized at regular intervals. We have dedicated our symposiums to the great jurist Mr. Nadi Palkiwala on his 100th birth anniversary. It has been decided to celebrate the 8th annual day function on 28th April 2020 at the auditorium of Odisha Judicial Academy on the occasion of Madhu Jayanti. We have opened a corpus fund account in the SBI High Court campus branch recently. All the donations to the academy are exempt from Section 80G of the Income Tax Act. With the paucity of funds, we are working hard to achieve the academy's goal. Your support is crucial to our efforts to achieve our mission. We are desirous to introduce e-library and video conferencing system in the academy. For the smooth functioning of the academy's activities, 4 members of committees have been formed. In the symposium committee, Mrs. Nivedita Maan is inducted as its coordinator, along with Mr. Gari Prasanna Mishra, Mr. Dadanand Patnaik, and Mr. Subhavikas Panda. In the constitutional class committee, Ms. Deepti Rekha Nanda is inducted as its coordinator, along with me, Mr. R.K. Sahu, Mr. Nivananda Das, and Mr. Mohit Agarwal. In the annual day celebration committee, Dr. K.L. Sharma is inducted as its coordinator and shall be in charge of printing and publishing of souvenir, and Mr. Kesikar, Executive Director, shall be in charge of the functioning of the committee. In Corporate Fund Drive Committee, Mr. Nataraman Panda is inducted as the coordinator along with Mr. Gurudat Kar, Mr. Sanjay Kumar Das, Secretary High Court Bar Association, and Mr. Kesikar, Executive Director, and myself, Director myself, shall be the ex officio members of the committee. So we have great challenges and great opportunities, and with help and support, we will meet them and make this academy a vibrant institution. With this, I conclude. Thank you.
To a legend, Nani Artist Palkiwala, esteemed Advocate General of Odisha, Mr. Ashok Parija, Senior Advocate and ex-officio Chairperson of the Lawyers Academy Odisha, dignitaries on the dais, of the dais, esteemed office bearer of the High Court Bar Association and other bar associations, respected senior members of the bar, esteemed patrons of the academy, Lord and office bearer and trustees of the TLAO, trust, fellow colleagues and their students from different law schools and who are present here. At the outset, I convey my humble regards to all of you. Nani Palkiwala was born in 1920 in Bombay to blue-collar middle-class Parsi parents. His family name derives from the profession of his forefathers, a common practice among Parsis who had been manufacturers of palanquins, that is palkis. He was educated at Master's Tutorial High School and later at St. Xavier's College, both in Bombay. He was a dedicated scholar and excelled even though he was hampered by a bad stammer. At college, he earned a master's degree in English literature and thus overcame his speech impediment. Upon graduating, Palkiwala applied for as Advocate General also mentioned this fact about the career of Nani Palkiwala, applied for a position as lecturer at Bombay University but was not awarded the post. Soon found himself trying to obtain admission to institutions of higher learning to further his academic career. It being late in term, most courses were closed and he enrolled at Government Law College, Bombay, where he discovered that he had a gift for unraveling the intricacies of jurisprudence. He was an excellent barrister at this time. Palkiwala was called to the bar in 1946 and served in the chambers of the legendary Sri Sir Jamshedji Behra much and was often the center of attraction in court, where students of law and younger members of the Bar Association would flock to watch him. His excellent courtcraft and an extraordinary ability to recall barely known facts and rendered him an irresistible host. Palkhiwala's initial forte was commercial and tax law. Together with Sir Jamsetji, he authored what was then and still today an authoritative work, The Law and Practice of Income Tax. Palkhiwala was 30 years old at that time of the first printing. Sir Jamsetji later admitted that the credit of this work belonged exclusively to Nani. Palkhiwala's first participation in a case of constitutional significance occurred in 1951, where he served as junior counsel in a case Nusirwanji Balsara versus State of Bombay, 1951, Bombay 210. Assisting the esteemed Sri Nusriwan engineer in challenging several provisions of Bombay Prohibition Act before the year was out, Palkhiwala was arguing cases himself, but his first case of constitutional import and a challenge of the validity of Land Acquisition Act was lost before the Bombay High Court. By 1954, barely 10 years after his admission to the bar, Palkhiwala was arguing before the Supreme Court. It was in his first case before the Supreme Court concerning the interpretation of Article 29, Clause 2 and Article 30 of Indian Constitution, which regulate and the rights of the religious minorities, that he articulated his famous statements on the inviolate nature of Indian Constitution. Most brilliant advocate. I did not know then that Palkhiwala would achieve such a rapid and dazzling success at the bar. Today, he is undoubtedly the most brilliant advocate we have in India. He has an unrivaled command over the language which he uses with mastery and skill, and which he combines with vast knowledge of law and great powers of advocacy. Apart from being an outstanding authority on income tax, on which he has written what is truly a monumental book, he has also acquired a mastery over the principles of constitutional law. Indeed, he can handle with consummate skill among any aspect of law. And it must finally be said to his credit that with all this, he has remained essentially modest and humble. Success has not gone to his head, something that is rare with human beings. Honorable Mr. Justice M. C. Chakla on Nani in his famous book, Rojas in December. In the words of Mr. Swaraj, for sheer advocacy, Nani was unsurpassable. Clarity of thought coupled with precision and elegance of expression, impassioned plea for case he espoused, excellent courtcraft, and ability to think on his legs rendered him an irresistible force. He was at his best in the Supreme Court in Kesavananda Bharati case, in which he persuaded the apex court to hold that the power of amendment of the Constitution was not unlimited and cannot be exercised so far as to damage its basic structure. Mr. Sori Swaraj, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India and former Attorney General of India, almost single-handedly he saved our Constitution from being amended by a majoritarian parliament so as to take away its basic democratic features, and his name became a household name word with the citizens of India. To the common man who read the daily newspaper, he was our Nani, a champion of human values, of freedom and liberty, an exponent of how best to run the government of the country. Mr. Fali S. Nariman, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. This year is Nani's birth centenary year. We at the Royal Academy dedicate a series of symposia in the loving memory of this legendary jurist of India, acclaimed worldwide. We, the people, we, the nation, would always remain indebted to this great human being by offering our profound and deepest tribute. Thank you all.
Kindly deliver the keynote address of this celebration.
Respected President,
other distinguished and eminent lawyers in the dais, my seniors, friends. I am also giving a small tax, though I said this initially, I should be a party to this, but they say, since your senior was a basically teacher of constitution, we have to speak some few words on constitution. If you read the very draft of the Constituent Assembly, the first language used, that should be human rights. Human rights should be guaranteed to all citizens. Subsequently, it was being augmented as fundamental rights. When the question of rights came, they thought we have to also bring some of the article relating to remedies. The question arose whether the fundamental rights can only be protected and or guaranteed by the Apex Code and or by other codes. Initially, if you read Article 32 of the Constitution of India, you will get Article 32 of the Constitution of India itself is a fundamental right and a constitutional right. But the same was confined to fundamental right, and those who are coming under Article 12 of the Constitution of India, namely government agency, government instrumentalities, only recognize under 32 of the Constitution directly before the Apex Code. Then, question I said assembly that what would be fate of the high courts and how the power will be given to the high courts to protect the fundamental rights. Therefore, if you read Article 226 of the Constitution of India, we get a non-substantive clause called notwithstanding anything stipulated under Article 32, the power will also be vested with the High Courts under Article 226 for fundamental rights and other rights such as statutory and other legal rights. I will not waste your time because I am conscious the eminent speakers are there who will speak elaborately, bit academically. Let me speak very few words. Then question arises, who can approach the court? Traditionally, there are two concepts. One was a person aggrieved. The second was the person affected. Of course, such a proposition is not available because of the judgment law by the Apex Code and by the different high courts. Now, any person can file an application even for an individual, a class of individuals for public purposes where public injury is caused to an individual or a class of persons. Therefore, the locus standi to challenge under 226 is not confined to the person affected and aggrieved. Then 226 power also restrict to use the different lead powers also restrict, such as habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, quaranto, and prohibition. So far, mandamus is concerned, for the knowledge of governors, let me tell, the person must have a right, the authority must have the obligation to grant such rights. Then the person must have approached the court, approached the authority, and all the authority against whom the power is vested. If the authority does not act upon and or act illegally, then you can ask the High Court under Article 226 of the Constitution of India to issue a mandamus, like habeas corpus, or in other words known as Abdimani for us. It is a right, it is also a writ where illegal detention of any nature can be cured through the by Apart from that, as you are aware, these are basically prerogative power of the High Court. Then another point, certiorari and prohibition. They are more or less akin. But in a case of certiorari, when somebody made courts or subject authorities close the case, but where the authority has no jurisdiction, transgress the jurisdiction, fundamental rights are affected, or statutory violated, one can approach the court for certiorari. But disposal of the court by the subordinate court or the authority. But in a case of prohibition, when the matter is pending before the subordinate authority or the subordinate court, but the court has no jurisdiction to entertain such application or exercise the power on the basis of such application, then during pendency, you can approach the High Court on Article 236 to restrain the authority to exercise further power. Quaranto, as you know, on what authority? Again, jurisdiction, power. Suppose X is appointed without the educational qualification, without the qualification prescribed for the post, he cannot exercise the power. He can ask the High Court under 236 for a direction to the authorities not to exercise power. With that arrangement, now my time is also limited. Indian speakers are there, so I will not elaborate other things because each day we are facing activity to basis. Now the law has developed a lot. There is no conventional or traditional philosophy. Till get 51 or 60 constitutional age, date with L. Then we get minus or without Article 226. The entire Indian constitution is meaningless. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. May I now request Rajanandan Gandhi, Senior Advocate, to kindly deliver his.
Good evening, respected Advocate General, Senior Mr. Mandi, Senior Mr. Bangari, dear Patnaik, dear Mr. Saurabh, Bhagini Nivedita, and learned friends in the bar. The Queen retained her powers. The Crown retained its powers. That when these subordinates cannot pass any order or arrested to pass orders, she will pass order. Prerogative was with her. The genesis there of 226. But this seminar, having been dedicated to Rani Palkiwala, I must pay my respect for that great soul at Divinisio. We can't forget Mr. Man Patnaik, who was the executive trustee from beginning of his trust and no more with us for last 10 days. My regards for him. Dear friends, the Queen's prerogative came to India through the Supreme Court at Calcutta. Then opened at Bombay. Then came Sipai Mutiny. The Queen took over the powers. Those Supreme Courts were replaced by High Courts. And powers to issue charter retained with the Queen. Under that charter, long after, we got a High Court at Patna with a circuit bench at Cuttack. Long thereafter, after the independence, an order was issued, no charter, an order was issued by the Governor General, well before the Constitution, establishing a High Court at Cuttack. I was in search of similar power as that of 226 in that High Court. which was established in 48. I had to trace back to Government of India Act 1935. Please go and see. The supervisory powers were only with the High Court. These high prerogative powers were not there. Yet the judges, with their wisdom, exercised that superintendent's power, which is akin to the quaranto, the certiorari, the prohibition. Of course, the powers of habeas corpus was inherent with the High Court because under Criminal Procedure Code, High Court is the depository powers of the criminal law and legislation. Under the latest patent, when Patna High Court was established, a small clause was there. Judges at their discretion can sit at the on circuit. They were reluctant. With great persuasion of late Madhusudan Das, circuit court started sitting here at their will, not in regular intervals. The original power of the Queen, while issuing a writs, high prerogative writs, the powers which king's courts were not vested with powers, to exercise that power, the Queen or the Crown was passing orders in exercise of their discretion. That is called high prerogative. That power includes to deprive a death sentence. The question is not there what we want to discuss today under the dictums of Shubhavikas 226. Let me tell you again. First is quaranto, then prohibition, then certiorari, then mandamus. Habeas corpus, let us